Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're going to be playing more of the Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which, after we choose our cards at the beginning of the game, our entire deck gets banished. And today we're going to be playing with what could be one of the strongest decks in this seasonal event, what I would call the quote-unquote meta. So let's check it out. Alright, so today we're going to be playing a Nilfgaard double cross deck, which means we'll be able to play a card from our opponent's hand. This deck has a great combination of locking, damaging, stealing, destroying cards, while still using cards with really high base strength that require little to no setup. So let's check it out. Yennefer's Invocation for removal. Tibor, who is a 13 strength card, normally would have a downside, except when our opponent has no deck. Doesn't matter, no downside at all. Ciri Nova, every card in this deck has 9 provision costs or less, meaning that she will gain Resilience, Shield, and Veil, so this is a great source of carryover from one round to the next. Eskel for high strength. Vilgefortz for destruction, and no downside for this one, because again, they don't have a deck. Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin to sabotage their hand. And Henrietta, which is a new card that allows us to steal their leader ability. Viper, which is another source of carryover because when the round ends, it goes into our opponent's graveyard, starts banishing the cards, and then once it has banished everything but itself, it comes back out onto our side of the playing field. Saer Qu'an for high strength. Imperial Golem for high strength and no downside because, again, they don't have a deck to lower the power of this card. Serrit for damage. Some poison. Lock and complement Serrit to give him additional damage. Destroy a locked unit. High strength. High base strength if our opponent plays a high base strength card, which is pretty common in this seasonal event. High power if we have one card in a row, and since rounds tend to be short, pretty easy to do. Relatively high base strength. Poison. Lock. And finally, more poison. So there's a look at the deck, and like I said, it has a nice combination of having high base strength cards, locking, poison, stealing cards, destroying cards, which makes this very powerful for this seasonal event. Quick side note, this is one of the most expensive decks that I've ever made from a scrap cost standpoint, so if you're new to the game and don't have many of these cards, this may not be the best deck for you for that reason, but fear not, next deck that we make will be about half the cost and arguably just as good. Okay, so we'll go against monsters here, and they'll go first. Okay, and we have Eskel, which is good early. Rico, which particularly against monsters, which can have some very high base strength cards. It's not a bad option. Ciri Nova is fantastic. We do have Serrit plus Auckes, that's a nice combo. Raw Tosser, do we have enough poison to go along with you? We don't right now, so that means either we want to get rid of you or try to find another way to get that poison. I think we probably dump you. Imperial Golem, big point slam, I like that. Adrenaline Rush could certainly work, but that might still be one of our weaker cards here, either that or the Ard Feainn Tortoise. This is 8, whereas this is 7. Let's dump you and get Viper. Also great. Okay, so they're immediately activating the Djinn. And then they're going to go Mantlet. Okay, didn't see that one coming. Was expecting immediately some big base strength card, but not this time, at least. Okay, so that would suggest that they are planning on going for a bit of a longer round 1 to set up something with armor, but that's a little bit odd for monsters. Not sure what that's all about, but I think what we do here is if we're anticipating a longer round, then let's go for Eskel first, because he'll get boosted by 1 every turn. And Necker for Thrive? Really? You sure about that? Okay, if you say so. So other cards that we want to play ideally in round 1 would be certainly Viper and or Ciri Nova for the carryover potential. As for which one we'd like to do first, not sure it makes a huge difference. Maybe let's go Viper now. And that will be enough for us to take the lead here. Okay, and here comes Yennefer. Okay, so this is their big card. And they played it early enough that it will get some armor from the number of cards in their hand, and they will get some armor from Mantlet. So maybe that's why they were playing Mantlet early. And I'm thinking that they may be planning on passing next turn. And I'm loving that they probably do have Osrel, or at least would like to consume Yennefer with Osrel. And if we banish Yigern from their graveyard with Viper, then they won't be able to do that, so that would be fantastic. Let's see, though. In terms of trying to still win this round, that's a little bit tricky, because that is, of course, such a big card that they just played. So ideally, we would get Ciri Nova, but that's not quite enough, I don't think. That gets us up to 23, and then after Eskel gets boosted, 24. If we were to go Imperial Golem, that could be good, but, I mean, you gotta go with Rico here, right? 13 points. Don't mind if I do. Okay, they're gonna damage Eskel a bit. But that's not a very high-power card. So I think what we do here is, I think we can win round 1, and then with our carryover from Viper and or Ciri Nova, put ourselves in a really strong position for round 2 as well. Maybe round 3, depending on how long this round ends up going. Viper may take a little bit too long to show up in round 2. That might end up being round 3, but let's go with Ciri Nova now. And let's play you in the range route just in case we have reason to use Adrenaline Rush later on. So let's throw you down, I guess. Well, I don't think you're going to be damaging adjacent cards. Probably not, so should be safe anywhere. Okay, they're still playing. Oh no, they can purify. No, Ciri Nova. Okay, so, alright, fair enough. We lost the resilience on Ciri Nova, but we are technically still in the lead here, and we have played one fewer card than them, and we do still have some potential carryover from Viper, so I think what we do here is we actually pass now. We'll get an additional 1 point from Eskel, and then that puts them on the hot seat. They need to decide, are they willing to play one more card, go 2 cards down in order to take the round 1 victory, or do they just accept that we'll win here, and we have 1 card advantage for rounds 2 and 3. I think either way, we still win. Yeah, they'll pass. So in that case, we'll get round 1. We'll have 1 card advantage, and we'll still have carryover from Viper. So we're looking very good here. And since we are a card up, there's no reason not to play here, I don't think. What if we use our leader ability to steal a card from their hand, and then use Henrietta to steal their leader ability as well? That might be a good play here. Otherwise, Saer Qu'an could be interesting. Just put a little bit of pressure on them to put some big cards down, which they might not be all that willing to do. I think either way probably works fine. Let's go with this and see what we can find in their hand. Yes, they do have Osrel, as I thought they might. Do we have any big cards that we played yet? I mean, this could potentially be good for us, but I don't think we have played them yet, because we have Rico, but we got that to be a big card through boosting. Okay, but we need to fast here, because otherwise we are going to burn a card. So it actually didn't turn into a great card for us to play from their hand. Let's just double check. Ciri Nova would have been the best for 8, which is not bad. Would have been a little bit better than Noonwraith, I suppose, but ideally we would have already played Imperial Golem and consumed that. And they realize there is no chance they can catch us. So they forfeit. Okay, so looks like we're going against Northern Realms here, and they will go first. Okay, and in terms of what we have here, we have 1 source of poison, but it looks like only 1. So we either want to get rid of this or try to find another source. We have a bit of lock here. Don't know if we want to go all in on that, or maybe that might be one of the best ways to try to find another source of poison. Let's try that here. Okay, Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin is not bad, but no poison, so I think we just don't take our chances with that. Let's try to swap out the Rot Tosser for something else and get Imperial Golem. Okay, so we have some big cards here. I'm liking what we have. Okay, they're going with their location, which is interesting. You don't see it too much in this seasonal event, I don't think. Griffin Witcher is some long-term value with that consistent damage, but that does suggest that maybe we can sprint this one out a little bit and pass early and either take a quick round 1 victory or force them to go down additional cards. And the best way to do that is probably either play the Imperial Golem or Tibor. Those are our 2 biggest cards, at least. Or we could decide to destroy you with something like Vilgefortz here. What would we like? I mean, even just doing something like Serrit for a bit of damage. We do have Auckes in our hand, so that's actually a pretty powerful play there. I think that is perhaps a decent option here. So let's go for it. No shortage of options, really. Okay, here comes another Griffin Witcher. Interesting, and it looks like they might be planning on using their tactic this time round. So that does mean that they currently have a lead. They have, of course, played one more card than us. Is that reason to pass here? When we could probably still overtake them in one card. So yeah, tell you what, let's go that route instead. And once again, plenty of options here. We could boost Serrit with Adrenaline Rush. We could just play high strength with something like Ard Feainn Tortoise. I think Tibor and the Imperial Golem probably overkill at this stage. Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin just to mess with them for a future round, and while still getting enough strength in this round, that's not bad. That might actually be a good route to take here. It's not going to be a huge deal against Northern Realms. This is definitely best against some factions that tend to have bigger base strength units, and that's definitely not Northern Realms, but let's go for it in case they have something like maybe Dawnmere of Troy, which would be their probably highest base strength card. Okay, they're going with a Runestone, so who knows what they're going to get here. And the answer is an Arbalest. Again, for some somewhat consistent damage, but it does take some time to get that value. And so that may mean that once again, we can overtake them fairly easily here. I think while we have just one card in each row, I do like using Adrenaline Rush. I think that's probably still going to be something that we have the option of doing in a future round, but that is a nice way to quickly get a bunch of points out there without having to play any of our cards with really strong deploy abilities, which are probably the types of things that we'd like to save. So I'm thinking we might go with that, and shouldn't matter too much which card we put it on. I guess we'll go Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, because he's a little bit weaker right now. Okay, well, he is on a multiple of 3 and therefore can get destroyed by Geralt Professional. That is one of their better cards, for sure. That's an 11 provision cost card right there. And then they did use their nice combo for putting the Veil on Griffin Witcher, so he'll get consistent damage, and also, once we eventually get to the point where they have 3 cards in their hand, they'll get an even better 3 damage per turn. So now things are looking more and more like we ought to pass here and just take our card advantage, because bear in mind, Northern Realms tends to be best in long rounds, so even if we lose round 1 here, we still have that card advantage, and by making rounds 2 and or 3 shorter, that does work to our advantage, particularly against Northern Realms. Okay, so they pass, and they'll take round 1, as expected. And they pass immediately here. So, in that case, what would we like to do as our throwaway card here? I'm thinking it might be the Tortoise. Either that or Auckes. Auckes, of course, does have the lock, so that is probably nice to hold on to that, whereas the Tortoise doesn't really have any special abilities other than just having relatively high base strength. So I'm thinking we dump you. And that will, of course, do the trick here for round 2. Okay, so we go first here in round 3. And something that we should bear in mind is that we have our leader ability, and then when we play Anna Henrietta, we will get their leader ability as well. So we probably want to use this a little bit on the early side. And we have some cards, namely Yennefer's Invocation and Vilgefortz, that are definitely meant to mess with their cards, Auckes as well. So that probably means that we are going with one of our just high base strength cards here. Like to save Tibor in case they have any additional forms of removal. So I think by default, that means we're probably going with the Imperial Golem here. Okay, and yes, they will destroy it, so that is partially why I deliberately played the Imperial Golem first rather than Tibor. In that case, we're losing an 11 strength rather than a 13 strength card. And now, I mean, do we really want to mess with Geralt of Rivia? He isn't doing anything down here anymore, so things like Lock from Auckes aren't really helpful. Destroying it with Vilgefortz, I mean, we get rid of 3 strength. That's not really all that helpful, though. So, and also remove it with Yennefer's Invocation, but this is kind of what I was getting at, where we'd like for them to play some stronger cards for us to actually mess with, rather than just trying to remove a 3 strength card like this. We're to use Double Cross now. Maybe that actually could be the way to go here. Let's see. Ooh. Which 3 enemy units? Well, I mean, this is no longer relevant with the whole when you lose a round component, so I think it's probably just Mad Kian here. We'll play him in the range row to get a little bit of a boost from formation, then we do want to trigger you to get the other leader ability from our opponents. And it does give us some insight as to what we might expect from them. So they have Saer Qu'an, which could be a form of removal for them if they have a way to boost him up. I mean, when he's boosted by 1, it's not really going to make a big difference. And that being said, we don't have any other ways to boost him, which is why I deliberately played him in the range row. But okay, Cadwani Revenant has more damage, yes. But it's only 1 damage, and the thing is they really want to get that death blow to trigger. But chances are that's not going to happen here. We could lock it. It's not a terrible idea with Auckes. That might be the way to go because, I mean, destroying, again, a 3-strength card is not really a big deal. So I don't think Yennefer's Invocation or Vilgefortz makes a ton of sense here. Probably going to want to save that for Saer Qu'an instead. So let's go Auckes here. And I said we didn't have any form boosting, but that's actually not true. We could boost Saer Qu'an with our new leader ability, which I almost forgot about. But that may still be something we wait on a little bit, because we could either split out those boosts and try to maximize the value from the Lyrian Scytheman, or we could deliberately load up those boosts on Saer Qu'an. Okay, so they do have a form of boosting with Temerian Drummer. My guess is Saer Qu'an is going to end up right next to that. And here come their leader ability charges as well. So I'm thinking we probably destroy the Temerian Drummer with one of these 2 cards and then destroy Saer Qu'an with the other, and then we'll save you for last. So in that case, let's go with you, I guess? Sure. Get rid of the drummer. And that's the problem with Northern Realms, in particular with this seasonal event when you're generally going to have short rounds, is it takes time for things like Temerian Drummer to get those boosts to stack up, and chances are you're just not going to have that time. Okay, and here is Ciri. We saw that they had this. This is another form of damage, yes. But not enough to be terribly threatening here. We're going to continue to use their leader ability charges, and that could actually be a decent thing for us to target with Yennefer's Invocation, rather than Saer Qu'an. We'll see how they end up using that. I suppose, well, we do need to make up our mind here. We're either removing a 5-strength card with Ciri, or we're saving this for either Saer Qu'an or their Lyrian Scytheman that they're going to spawn in. And I think, based on what we know, that they do have a Saer Qu'an as one of their 2 remaining cards, I think it's actually relatively safe to play Tibor here at this stage. So why don't we deliberately throw you out? And that gives us the ability to save Yennefer's Invocation for when they have a stronger card out there that is more valuable for us to get rid of. Okay, there's their... Ah, the 1-strength Saer Qu'an. That's the one that we hit with Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, I suppose. So that really hurts them, because Saer Qu'an sure does have 6 base strength, or 7 if you play him in the range row to start off with, but his big thing is that if you boost him, he can deal that extra damage, but that's not going to happen when he's down at 2. So in that case, I suppose we'll Yennefer's Invocation, yeah, on Ciri, because we don't really have any options but to do that. And then we have the leader ability that we stole, that we have not yet used, and we could deliberately spread that around a little bit. I suppose we can. So let's do this. And, well, they forfeit because this was not close. Okay, so we're going against monsters here, and they will go first. And we have some high base strength cards with Imperial Golem and Tibor. Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, I think, can be effective against monsters if they have something like Yigern. That's a lot of base strength that we can reduce. Removal with Yennefer's Invocation, that's nice. We have some lock. Actually, a bit of lock. 2 rounds of poison, just not a lot of control over that, because Rot Tossers, there's a bit of a delay between when you actually play the cow carcass and when the poison actually applies, so I'd almost prefer to get something else instead. Okay, and we get Saer Qu'an, and we get Henrietta, and I think those are both cards that we're happy to have here. Interesting. Intriga Larva. Going for Thrive here? That's an awfully long-term strategy for what tends to be a seasonal event with short rounds in it, but okay. So I will admit I didn't see that one coming, and therefore don't have the best ideas how we ought to play against it. Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin does have some long-term value. We can reduce the strength of their highest card and still jump ahead of them with a 1-card play. Tortoise is also high enough base strength that we could take it with just 1 card. Tibor, Imperial Golem both feel like overkill here. Saer Qu'an and Prizeman Cow, maybe we even Saer Qu'an, because even if they pass immediately here, which I don't think they're going to do, then at the end of our next turn, Saer Qu'an will boost itself, and I don't know how much damage they're going to have. Frightener, ooh, very interesting. Okay, so, again, going with more so the long-term strategies here, because they need to destroy 3 allies before this card will turn into a 12-strength unit. But that will take some time unless they, say, have something like the Karen, which has Zeal and can consume 3 times, in which case they can trigger this basically immediately on their next turn. However, Saer Qu'an, if we pass right now, will still get boosted by 10 at the end of this turn, which will force them to play 1 more card here. So at the very least, it will force them to go 2 cards down, or just give us the round here. So I think in either of those situations, we're fine with that. Okay, and they are playing. Go with a Night Wraith here, which does not do any of that destruction. But I suppose, with all that Thrive, it is still enough for them to take the lead here, but it does mean that they are down 2 cards going into rounds 2 and 3. Okay, so they'll go first here in round 2. I have to imagine they're going to pass immediately, unless they don't. Okay, sure. Playing an 8-strength Griffin, maybe they're saying, well, I don't think you have a strong enough card to surpass 8 strength in 1 turn. Except we do. So, you know, we could play an Imperial Golem and laugh in their face for missing their chance to reduce the amount of card disadvantage they were going to have. Okay, and they will put Bleeding on the Imperial Golem. The presence of vampires does perhaps suggest that we might see more of that later on, though this is also a Thrive unit, so it may just be a carryover from some of the Thrive we've seen before. Does put us even on 11 strength, however, of course, we'll take 1 damage at the end of this turn from the bleed. But mostly just wanted to play the Imperial Golem first to make sure that we surpassed the Griffin. Now I think what we do is we go for the better long-term value from Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, because this is enough strength, and it reduces their strength, perhaps considerably. Okay, and they'll play Fuka for some Thrive. That is enough for them to take the lead here again. And, I mean, we'd like to just inch forward ever so slightly here. Not overcommit ourselves and play one of our better cards when we just need a little bit of strength to pass them. We could potentially lock that Fuka, because that has Thrive 2, whereas the Bruxa just has Thrive 1. It's a little bit better. We do have 2 sources of lock, so we could perhaps be somewhat aggressive with that. Of course, we do some outright removal as well, but that's probably something we'd like to save. But I think we go for this then. It will be enough to pass them, and it will shut down one of their engines. Yeah, and they'll pass. Okay, so that means that we have maintained 2-card advantage here going into round 3, so that's huge. Okay, and we go first here. And that's a little bit tricky because some of our cards, namely Auckes and Yennefer's Invocation, are based largely off of messing with our opponent, and they don't have any cards out there yet to mess with. So we could play some of our stronger cards like Tibor, maybe even the Tortoise. That's not out of the question, but I think instead what we do here is perhaps we use our leader ability and then play Anna. Now, stealing their leader ability is not terribly inspiring in this situation. Fruits of Yizgith, not so helpful for us, but actually they realize they cannot win, so they forfeit. Okay, so we'll go against Nilfgaard here, and we will go first. And we have Eskel, who's a pretty good first-round card. Imperial Golem, another big point slam. And a Henrietta, that's nice. Saer Qu'an, if we can keep it safe, is good, although that's a little bit difficult against Nilfgaard in particular. I do like Viper early as well. We have 1 source of poison. Do we have multiple? We don't. So we might want to dump you. Either that or try getting rid of Saer Qu'an or Prizeman Cow, see if we can get a different source of poison. And that we did. Okay, so that's a little bit better then. We have lock to set up Vanhemar. We actually do not. So let's dump you. And, well, there is the lock. Then, Auckes, I suppose we could keep you. Let's go with this then. Okay, so I think what we do is we play Eskel first. We use our tactic to get him big here, put the pressure on our opponent to try to keep pace. If they can't, they may pass early. And if they do, then we may actually play in round 2, even when we're down a card, and deliberately just throw out Viper and nothing else. So let's see what happens here. Okay, and they will just destroy a big unit, so that does make some sense. But we could still play that now. The one problem is, against Nilfgaard specifically, they have so much lock that there's a decent chance they might just turn around and lock him. Technically speaking, we could then proceed to Purify Viper, so that's not out of the question. That might be a way to counteract that. Let's give it a shot here. Okay, and they'll just go for a relatively high point Rico play. And it does mean that they have taken the lead here, although we may be able to do something about that. We could either pack a pretty big punch with Serrit here for 4 damage and surpass them that way. We did not get Viper locked, which I do like. We could try to set up the poison, but because we're relying on the Moorlehem Cupbearer to be the second form of poison, and we're not sure if we're going to want either poison or purify from him, I think we hold off on that. And maybe we just keep it simple here. Play a 7 strength Tortoise and see if that's enough. And Magni Division does make sense for their other row here. It is just barely enough for them to tie, and then if they were to pass at the end of their next turn, they would surpass us by 1 point. So yes, that is a smart move, but it is easy to pass them. The thing is, we'd like to keep this a relatively short round so that Viper can quickly get out of their graveyard and onto the playing field for a future round. So what can we do to end this round soon? I think maybe even Serrit on the Magni Division to outright destroy it, and that would give us a pretty sizable lead here that I would think our opponent might not want to try to come back from. Otherwise, we're looking at just playing for a bunch of points. Let's go for Serrit, I think. Of course, technically speaking, does mean they now know that we have Auckes in our hand, because that was 4 damage rather than the usual 2, but I think we can live with that. And they're going to go with Primordial Dow, which is interesting, because that means we're tied with 6 cards apiece right here, though we do have some carryover potential that they do not have, because we have Viper down here. Round 1 here is definitely still open for the taking, so it's tempting to keep on going here. They do now have a 9-point card out there that is very tempting to try to poison. We could alternatively play one of our biggest cards in Saer Qu'an and just hope that they don't try to destroy this. They haven't locked or done anything to Viper, and I don't know how to read into that, because I would have thought that they'd have more than enough ways to make that happen, and maybe that means that Saer Qu'an could be safe as well. So I think maybe we try playing this here. It's enough in the short term to overtake them, and then soon thereafter, when he gets boosted by 10, we will surpass them by a lot. Okay, and Auckes will lock. Okay, so they do have lock, confirmed. But I think it might be a good thing that we baited that out on Saer Qu'an rather than Viper. I think we would prefer that this gets locked rather than this. But it does now mean that they have taken the lead here on even cards, which is a bit concerning. And at this point, we are at risk of Viper not having time to eat through the entirety of their graveyard, because this round has gone on far longer than we would have liked. So that is making me very concerned. I think we may almost need to pass here, even though that means that we will have lost round 1 and be on even cards. We just can't afford to lose the long-term value from Viper. This is basically a free card, so I think we deliberately pass here. It hurts me a bit, but at the same time, it might actually be in our best interest for rounds 2 and or 3. Okay, and they immediately pass, and Viper starts to eat away a bit at their graveyard, so this means that we basically just want to play our weakest card here, which is a little bit tricky, because we don't want to split up our poison between 2 different rounds, otherwise we don't have enough to destroy a card with it. We obviously don't want to play Imperial Golem here, that is our biggest point slam. Auckes might be the answer, because in Henrietta, we don't really want to be using our leader ability right now, and so doesn't do much good for us to play her and waste her deploy ability. I think it has to be Auckes. That is, yes, a little bit overkill for the situation, but of course, no alternatives here. Fortunately, does mean that we're giving Viper a little bit more time to eat through here, and he should have time to actually come into play in round 3. So even though we're going to be down a card, we'll get the 7 strength from Viper at some point in round 3 here. Okay, so what do we do first here is the question, because I think Imperial Golem, we want to try to save you for a little bit later in the round, because this will be our biggest point card, and if we play it early, makes it easier for them to do something to destroy it. So I think what we go with is we use our leader ability early here, and maybe even play Tibor. Okay, I like that. We see they have a lot of points in their hand, so let's play you. And then I think we use this to steal their leader ability. And then we could even potentially turn around and do it again here. I think we actually do. Because I was hoping we would get Tibor again. I was thinking that the reason why we would do it now would be they are at risk of playing Tibor next turn so that we can't play from their hand. Get Imperial Golem, which is still not bad. But it could have been a little bit better. And now, of course, even if they do use removal, we will have enough big cards out there that they can't get rid of all of them. And they'll steal our Imperial Golem. Okay, fair enough. Makes sense here. They did not take one of our poison cards, and they have Anna Henrietta as well. We did not see that as one of the cards that we were able to steal, but they're going to do exactly what we just did to them. And they'll take Imperial Golem again. Now, we did technically get slightly better value out of our Anna Henrietta than they did, because we got a 13 and an 11, whereas they just got 2 11s. But that's relatively minor. And we know they have Tibor, so we'd like to ideally use the poison on him. But if they're smart, they will deliberately wait as long as possible to play Tibor, so that we don't have time to apply both of those poisons. So I think what we do here is we basically have to play our Imperial Golem, and like I said, we have enough big cards out there that, yes, they probably will destroy one of them, but they're not going to be able to destroy all of them. Okay, Alba Pikeman does give them a bit of damage here against Tibor. And Viper is getting very close, has just one more card to eat before it will come out. And now we have to start doing poison. So, what do we go for here? I think we play Rot Tosser first, because that has a little bit of a delay. It's only at the end of their turn that it will actually apply the poison, whereas Van Moorlehem's Cupbearer is immediate. So we're at risk of, if we lead off with this, and then use Rot Tosser next, they might be able to slip a card in between the cards that we're trying to poison, and dodge it. So I think that means Rot Tosser first, and in that case, let's throw you in between the Imperial Golem, which is a card that we'd like to get rid of the most, and then worst comes to worst, if you put something in between Imperial Golem and the Cow Carcass here, then we'll get rid of Alba Pikeman, which will get rid of the damage that it's doing, and 4 strength card is obviously not great to delete, but okay, now that's going to be 7 strength. It cannot be changed in any way, but speaking of 7 strength, here comes Viper, and there goes the poison, and they did not do anything to prevent Imperial Golem from getting poisoned. So that's great, because that means now we can go ahead and get rid of their strongest card. But we know they still have Tibor in their hand, so they have 13 strength from that. Then what was their last card? I don't recall if we know. So here is Tibor, but that is not enough by itself. It is another Imperial Golem. It's going to be close. But they're going to fall just shy. We will walk away with the victory. So there's a look at what might be one of the strongest decks in the new Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.